Thank you very much, and good morning once again. I'm not sure, I know that we're on here, the red light's going, so we'll see how the quality turns out. All we can do is try, right? All we can do is try. We are, after today, there are four chapters left. Because there's how many chapters in Revelation? 22, and we're at 17. I almost went one more ahead. We're on chapter 17, and we are going to take it upon ourselves to solve a mysterious case. Solve a mysterious case. So let me read to you from Revelation 17. And follow along if you would. And once again, I'm reading from the English Standard Version. Then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and said to me, "Come, and I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk. And he carried me away in the Spirit into a wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. When I saw her, I marveled greatly. But the angel said to me, "Why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman, and of the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns that carries her. The beast that you saw was and is not, and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. And the dwellers on earth whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world will marvel to see the beast, because it was, and is not, and is to come. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. They are also 7 kings, 5 of whom have fallen. One is, the other has not yet come. And when he does come, he must remain only a little while. As for the beast that was and is not, it is an 8th, but belongs to the 7, and goes to destruction. And the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received royal power, but they are to receive authority as kings for 1 hour together with the beast. These are of one mind, and they hand over their power and authority to the beast. They will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them. For he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and those with him are called and chosen and faithful. And the angel said to me, "The waters that you saw, where the prostitute is seated, are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. And the 10 horns that you saw, they and the beast will hate the prostitute. They will make her desolate and naked and devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose by being of one mind and handing over their royal power to the beast, until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman that you saw is the great city that has dominion over the kings of the earth." Amen. So, like I said, we are going to be solving a little mystery today. We are taking on the case. Are you ready for this? The case of the purple problematic pearl-clad prostitute. So this is the case that we are to solve. The case of the purple problematic pearl-clad prostitute. We need to find out her horrific identity. We need to understand her deceptive destruction. And lastly, we need to find out her inevitable ending. All right, got all that? Now, I want you to be aware that when I did this earlier and practiced it, boy, some of these words are they don't easily come out. So if you find me doing that again, hey, that's just the way it is. But we need to learn who this purple problematic pearl-clad prostitute is, and once again, understand who her identity is, her horrific identity, her deceptive destruction, and her inevitable ending. So what we see here is a great progression in the whole of the book of Revelation. And we have moved from letters. There were 7 letters to 7 churches, correct? We moved from those letters to the churches to 7 seals. And from those 7 seals were revealed 7 trumpets. And then 7 trumpets lastly revealed 7 bowls. 7 bowls judgments. And now, with that last bowl that was poured out, what we find is the end is here, the end is now, and we have revealed to us this, purple problematic pearl-clad prostitute, and how she plays into, the whole of Revelation, and how she plays into the, end times, and what happens to her. The interesting thing that we find out about her is the imagery, and I find the imagery to be quite fascinating. Her imagery is, it shows her to be this mysterious woman of evil, but more than that, the imagery is spectacular, as she is understood to be very beautiful and luminous in many other ways, and she has charm. She has charm so much that she is able to charm the kings. And ultimately what she does is her kings and the charm leads to deception. And that very beauty of who she is, is part of her imagery and appeal. But even though she is beautiful on the outside, we do not find in her any rest or peace or beauty or good on the inside. We find instead only abomination and immorality. Only abomination and immorality. So, to share with you what I mean and what I'm talking about, quite a few years ago, some friends or family, they went down to Arizona and then crossed the border into Mexico and then brought some candy back for the kids. Most kids like candy, correct? I mean, who doesn't? Now, I did not realize that, especially in other places down south, some of our taste buds are just a little bit different. Maybe you guys have ever experienced these. Such as there's a lollipop, what we would, just a nice lollipop, right? And you taste it, and it tastes really great, and then all of a sudden, it looks good on the outside, it tastes good, and then you get just a little bit further in, and at least for me, my mouth was on fire. Because there had to be some sort of chili powder or something. Have those? Anyone? No? Okay, well, if anyone goes down south, bring us back some and we'll all experience that together. In the same way, I know they brought for all of my kids a green lollipop, and I believe it was jalapeno flavored, and in the middle of it was a little scorpion. Now, you can get those in other places. Now, I heard that you can get those like up at Water Safari. I've had to figure out why. Are you supposed to eat the scorpion? I cannot figure that out. But they're real. Just because it looks good, and even if you like jalapeno, I don't know about the scorpion part. Whether it's alive or dead, I still would probably struggle eating a scorpion. How about you? Probably couldn't do it, or wouldn't necessarily like doing it? You know, it's one thing for us to eat one of those, what were those called? The little round fireballs. You know, it's one thing to eat a fireball, but to eat a jalapeno flavored scorpion, that's a whole other thing. It kind of reminds me as well of, you know, as Easter's coming up and some of us will be getting candy and such. It kind of reminds me of the dollar store candy. I have no problem with dollar stores, but I like to make sure I know where that candy's been made beforehand. I'm not always quite sure about the cleanliness factors of some places. You know what I mean? Or what kind of additives, or just like when we buy dog food and all of a sudden we think, oh, this is a good brand, but then years ago when you bought the dog food from Walmart, the old brand that it was, all these dogs got sick and died from it. I mean, this was years ago, but still. And every once in a while you hear about recalls and you think, oh, this is good, it's a good brand, and then all of a sudden you're finding out that you're rushing your pet or your children or someone else to the hospital or the emergency room. You need to know what it is. And just because it looks good or just because it might taste good does not necessarily make things good. You got that? Just because it looks good or even tastes good at first does not always necessarily make things good. And that's exactly what we have here with this purple, problematic, pearl-clad prostitute. She looks beautiful. She's clad in gold and jewels and pearls, and she has this gold cup, and she's all in scarlet and purple, and she's wearing the colors of royalty. And yet what we see is nothing but evil. And nothing but, once again, sin and destruction. So let's look at her identity and look to some of the clues that we have about her. So at first we may think that she's trying to hide her identity because of the riddles and the illusion that we have here. But more and more truth is poured out as we start to read further. So let's look at some of the clues that reveal her to us. All right? So first of all, she's identified as a great prostitute. Next, she is seated on many waters and on 7 hills. She sits on a scarlet beast with blasphemous names. Of course, that beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. Any of that sound familiar? 7 heads, 10 horns. Okay, just making sure. She's wearing purple and scarlet, adorned with gold, jewels, and pearls. She's holding a golden cup, but what's in that golden cup? A golden cup full of sinfulness, basically. And golden is full of her impurities, basically a cup of abominations. Okay? She even has a mysterious name written on her forehead, which is Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations. So that gives us a bunch of clues in who she is. Once again, her beauty is great. So great that, even John the Revelator, as he was writing this down and making note of it, he was marveled by her. So there had to be some at least earthly beauty in that he was marveled by her. But it took the angel to bring him back and to clear his mind. And then the angel reveals to John who this woman is and her role in the whole scheme of Revelation. We come to know this woman and her identity as revealed to us in verse 18. In fact, what we see is something else that has been personified. In other words, she has been portrayed as a woman, in that, verse 18 says, is the great city that has dominion over the kings of the earth. Or she is the great city that has dominion over the kings of the earth. So what we see here is this woman has been personified, but she's really just a vessel. And in all reality, a city that has been but a tool for Satan and the kings of the earth to lead the whole world astray. Now, it's easy to guess, because we had talked about this before, that, remember we talked about the number of a man, and the number of the man, we kind of guessed that to be Caesar. So wouldn't it make sense that this woman is a city, and that city would be Rome? Because supposedly there are 7 hills in which that Rome sits on, and there's water around it, and so it kind of would make some sense for us to understand that to be Rome. Now, historically, that may be correct, but Rome doesn't quite have the power that it does before. So look at the world power it was. And at one time, it was the part of the whole cradle of civilization, or at least the Roman Empire, after, of course, Athens fell. But now we see, if we were to look at this in our modern day context, what city would that be? Would that city be New York City? I mean, look at that. Think about all the languages that are spoke there. All the kings that come to the United Nations. Who knows? Maybe. Would it be maybe Hollywood? There's a lot of pretend kings and queens in Hollywood. Would it be maybe for us Baghdad or Beijing? Who knows? I'm not sure that it's necessary for us to know an exact location here and now. What is essential for us to know is that somehow, one way or another, that a city will play a major role in bringing these kings together and deceiving people. A city will play a role in the destruction and the deception, once again, of God's people. So if we take that kind of key that I said earlier, just because it looks good, just because it tastes good, doesn't make it good, kind of helps us to understand about her deceptive destruction that she has. Once again, I have some more clues about her destruction. First of all, we know that she is guilty, and the case against her is self-incriminating. In other words, it's right there, plain for all of us to see. She had impure relations with world leaders and caused them to be swayed by her guiles. In other words, Satan used her. Satan used her as a pure vessel of evil. And her exploits brought about unhealthy appetites in these world leaders. And certainly she used the saints, or rather the children of God, as a means to fill their thirst for blood and savage entertainment. If we think about Rome, we can't help but think of the what? The Roman Colosseum. What did they do in the Roman Colosseum? They threw Christians to the lions and whatnot. Most of us remember that. I'm wondering if that's even taught anymore in high school. But that was a major part of what happened in the Colosseum. These blood games were a great source of entertainment for the Romans and in those cities. But all these things we see happen but for a moment, and they all come to pass, so that even the beast, even the one she's riding, even Satan rises up against her and hates her. And when her use is done, when he has used her for what he has used her purpose for, she is discarded. She is left by the wayside. So we can see that this inevitable ending is really quite sad, can't we? And even though she has done these evil things, in many ways, she was just used and abused, and, well, once again, to be a vessel of evil, but not necessarily evil in herself. But she's still used as a terrible pawn in Satan's plot against God, to the point where she becomes hated by even those who used her for their purpose. John tells us that, and the 10 horns that you saw, they and the beast will hate the prostitute. They will make her desolate and naked and devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. Doesn't that sound like what would happen to a city? Everyone leaves. She'll become desolate. No one will be there. They strip her of all her wealth and power. They burn her up. When you leave a city, you don't leave it in one piece. You destroy it completely. And as the woman has served her purpose, all the kings and nations come together as one great force to fight in that final battle against God. Who is this woman? We simply can know her as a city. What city? Like I said, it doesn't matter. But we know that the idea is that we need to be attentive to what is going on around us. And we can pretty much say that this case has been solved. And as we see in the following chapters, there will be a great celebration surrounding her downfall. And a great celebration as this woman will no longer be needed. That purple, problematic, pearl-clad prostitute will no longer hold the sway of her people, as she will be defeated. And we will see shortly, like I said in upcoming chapters, that even Satan will go to his rightful place for all eternity. No longer will people be tormented by her tantalizing temptations. God is in control. And another distraction has been destroyed. No longer can anything keep God's people from enjoying God's perfection. Just because something looks good and just because it tastes good does not necessarily make it good, as in the case of the purple, problematic, pearl-clad prostitute. But we do know what's good, don't we? And is Jesus Christ. We know what's good because we have tasted and we have seen. We know what's good because when we come to the Lord's table and celebrate Holy Communion, we know that it is Jesus Christ that we are honoring. We know that it is for his sake that we come together and remember his once and for all sacrifice so that we would know his salvation. Amen.